Hey there. Have there ever been times in your relationship when you don't feel seen or heard? Lots of people have this experience. So stay tuned to hear more. This is the Discover Your Amazing Edge podcast, Spicy Friday edition. And I am Sarah in Seattle, coming at you from the West Coast. And
And I'm Zev Halpern in the suburbs of Washington, D.C., our nation's capital, on just a lovely summer day, as beautiful as it can be. And today we're talking about disappointment, which I'm sure nobody out there has ever felt, right? Nobody, you've
nobody,
never been disappointed by anything.
nobody's ever
Sure. If you are that, please bottle it, put it, up for sale
will
because
buy it.
there is a huge market
There
because
is.
there is, a boatload of disappointment in this world. So, what do you think, Sarah?
I think that disappointment keeps people up at night. I think it causes insomnia. I think it causes some people to go to bed crying because they feel like they can't communicate to their partner their needs in a way that is fully understood, let alone delivered. And this can cause extreme disappointment.
So, you like when you're in this relationship and you're with somebody and you love them and they love you, supposedly, but you're not feeling them, and you're certainly not feeling like they're paying attention to you, like they give a shit, about whether you are breathing or not. They seem to be off in their own thing, and you're left disappointed, heartache, and it can go on and on and on until you might do something about it. And I think, somewhere in this podcast today, we'll want you to think about doing something about it because nobody should have to be sitting in a puddle of disappointment and drowning in that disappointment.
And that's a good point because disappointment does feel like drowning. It feels like there's no escape. You feel so very alone. You feel like you just can't talk to anybody. And even if you can talk to somebody, sometimes the disappointment drags you so down that you just literally don't want to talk about it. That's the other paradox that can come with disappointment. The words fail. You're disappointed, but how do you even communicate that? So some people just keep it balled inside and they just have no relief or even release for their disappointment, which is even more sad.
You look in the mirror, you don't even want to look in the mirror because you feel so crappy. And you're thinking to yourself, hey, mirror, you going to validate me today? You're going to like make me feel like I'm somebody, like I exist, like I'm in this world, like I have feelings, like I couldn't possibly have any feelings. It's not going to happen. We need validation. We need to hear from other people that what we're doing, that we're on course, that we're headed for somewhere, that they appreciate what we do for them, that we that they recognize the hard stuff we do in life to keep relationships going. Because relationships they don't teach us in school are not so easy. I mean, they seem easy at the beginning. We get all attracted and all hot and bothered and all crazy, and we're banging each other like right and left, and it's like a all night. The big event is like all day and all night.
You
Uh,
put on that, remember the, I don't know what they're called. I think they're black lights where you turn out the light and then you turn on this light and everything that's white glows.
yeah, black lights.
Yeah. You remember the days of the black light where you put
I
on
sure do. Psychedelic posters. Yahoo! Let's date
the,
ourselves,
and you
Sarah.
turn
Let's
on
do it.
That
Let's
black
say it ourselves, you know.
yeah.
Hey, Edward Zia, thank you for
Ed!
showing up. And
Woo!
we're talking about disappointment. I know you haven't ever been disappointed in your life, right? And you don't know anybody who has. But thanks for coming. It's always great to see you.
All the way from
Um,
Australia. We are
yeah,
honored, Edward Zia. Thank you for coming. We love
all the way from down under, from
yes,
that Sydney Harbor Bridge.
where the
Man.
kangaroos attack humans. My son
Anyway,
showing me a video yesterday of where some people were walking around a neighborhood and one of those male juvenile kangaroos, it just started attacking them and they get really buff. They get these really buff chests. So when they stand up, maybe Ed, maybe you can verify this, Ed, but when those kangaroos stand up, they have these short little arms and they get these buff chests and they look like humans almost with a kangaroo head. And I've seen them put people in headlocks. I've seen them put dogs in headlocks and they're just walking
yeah,
around suburbia. And I'm like, dang, we just have deer here and they flee. But apparently the kangaroo down under has an attitude. So I wonder if that disappoints Australians. I don't know.
who
Does it?
knows? But, back to disappointment because, us Americans, sometimes we think about Australia as, kangaroos and Vegemite sandwiches because of the songs we hear. But Edward Z is legendary, and thank you for showing up. Now back to disappointment, which really sucks. And anybody who disagrees with me, please challenge me.
Yeah, tell us
Disappointment.
disappointment doesn't suck. We'd love
Disappointment happens around the clock. People, and it hurts, and it is deep, and we look for a way to deal with it. But I would say, the human body, us humans, we do have some things on board that can help us deal with disappointment when it does show up. And that is, it's a mindset. And the mindset is deal with what transpires. Got to deal with it. Deal with what transpires.
deal with
If,
what transpires.
because things are going to jump out, and life isn't going to be like we talked about,
No,
all wham bam, thank you, man, and the next day and the next day and the next day, till all of a sudden all that harmony and all that lovely and all that just stops. What you used to talk about, it didn't matter what you were talking about. You could be talking about air. It wouldn't matter. You just wanted to be with each other. You just wanted to be attentive. You wanted to hear what each other had to say. You wanted to listen. You wanted to be close. You wanted to touch. And guess what? There comes a time where, for a lot of people, all of a sudden, like the world stops being round and it goes flat and you fall off the cliff.
no way. So we do have a flat earth.
And when you fall off the cliff and you're sitting there going, why doesn't she know who I am anymore? Why doesn't he hear me? Doesn't he see that I'm just distraught? Why is everything else so important? Why am I number 10, when I should be number 1?
Maybe he's just doing this all day.
Yeah, well, the phone thing doesn't help, that's for sure. I'm sure the phone has contributed to you disappointment because people bury their freaking faces, in that phone. I mean, look, some people, they can't even talk to each other anyway. They come from a generation where all they did was text, and, I love you by text. I miss you by text, even though you're right in front of me. Hello, we're right in front of each other. Hello, Sarah. I see you.
No.
Amazing.
But here's what's funny. When I was in high tech, I knew these 2 employees from Microsoft. They were married. And when they got home, they would sit in the living room. They wouldn't face each other and they would just text each other. That's how it was. That was how they kept harmony. And by the way, Paul Taylor is chiming in from Bakersfield. Did I read that correctly? And he says that they have buff possums there. So you better watch out. If you still
Thank you.
might have a buff possum like flying at your head. It's a
Oh my
possum.
God. Thank you for that wildlife report. And because it's good to know.
It's good to know.
Because Australia's on my bucket list. So look, I'm going to watch out for those buff possums now. I just added it to the caution list. Thank you very much.
I think it's in Bakersfield, if I'm reading that correctly. I think that's down in California.
But anyway, in terms of
marsupials, so there you go. Anyhow,
Sarah is going into zoology right now. So
Yeah.
I don't know. She's heavy into zoology,
I am.
because it's a lot better than thinking about disappointment. I can promise you that. Getting back to that, well, what do you do with it besides being able to deal with what transpires and figuring out some kind of mindset that allows you to recognize that one of the biggest human deficiencies is attention, and we have short attention spans. For some reason we get heavy in at first, and then all of a sudden it diminishes, and pretty quickly. Ever had a toy where you go, I want that toy, and then all of a sudden that toy's been laying on the floor for God knows how long, because your attention span just was, you were excited and it diminished. In the same way, it happens with relationships. Well, what do you do with that hurt, Sarah? And how does it show itself, this hurt? What do you do? I mean, think about what's behind some of the closed doors of the world as we're speaking now about disappointment. Think anybody behind any closed doors are feeling disappointment about Friday night might have used to been, and it ain't no more. Or two people staring at the TV, instead of doing something where they're really close and they're excited and it's fun. And, it used to be so much fun, and now it's just disappointing. But there is something about the hurt of disappointment. Some people, again, they wallow in it, they drown in it. They're willing to do that. Others basically pull themselves up by the bootstraps and say, you know what, I'm sick of this crap. I can't deal with this anymore. I'm going to do something for myself. I think that's one of the great things, and one of the number one things you need to think about doing when somebody else disappoints you. And that is that you are you, and you can do, and you can rise up, and you can pull yourself up. And I recommend that you do that, because the fastest way to change somebody's attitude, who loves you, but isn't paying attention to you, when all of a sudden you start paying attention to something else. And a lot of time, look, relationships end, marriages end, because people are just so damn disappointed. But disappointment also, you got to do something for yourself. You can't just drown in the hurt.
You have agency. Push that whole destiny thing aside and think about the agency that you have within yourself and what you can control. You can actually control, nearly 100% of things in terms of how you react to a situation. You cannot control what happens to you, as you know, but you can control how you handle it. And that's where your agency comes in. So pull out that agency, pull it out. It's there.
Well, there is something that gets in the way of that, and it's codependency. People get very, codependent upon the people that they're with, years, months, weeks. I went backwards, days, weeks, months, years. They depend on other people. And when the other person gets in a shitty mood, all of a sudden the atmosphere and the climate is that kind of dump pile. And you either have to pull yourself out or you're going to be pulled in. And I'm sure that many of you out there get pulled in because of codependency. We learn to depend on our spouses. We learn to, we live as partners, but really we're individuals. We begin as individuals, we end up as partners, and sometimes we shed the partners and go back to individuals because being in that partnership was a horror story for some people. Others, it's just a magnificent experience of love and wonder. But for some people, it's a horror story. They go to sleep at night and they cry and they scream, even though they're silent. They're screaming. Haven't you ever seen it? I've had people here in the office silent and screaming,
Yeah.
and you can feel it. The walls are trembling.
Yeah.
For how angry they are at being dissed, disappointed, not heard, not felt. It's a really tough thing to be, and they don't teach us, that we're supposed to get, how to get out of that. And we want you to have some tools. We want you to be able to get out of it. So the first tool, that I suggested before was you got to do something for yourself. You have to pull yourself out of this. You have to take the magnet, pull yourself apart from it, and all of a sudden look at your own horizons. And a lot of couples, for instance, in relationships, one of them goes to therapy, or one of them goes to coaching, or one of them gets coached, and all of a sudden they start to feel, whoa, this is great, my life is so much better. The other person's lagging behind, and their relationship is never the same, because it's kind of like they're like this. Somebody has risen. They realize that life isn't a plateau. Life is basically it's an open chute. It's just it doesn't seem that way because we get stuck in these boxes. Break out, break through, do something to get yourself out of it. I wasn't in the greatest mood today to do this particular podcast, but I broke through. And it's important to do that because there is another side, and you can get to the other side. It's not like the Wizard of Oz. I mean, look at her. I mean, tell me she wasn't disappointed living on that freaking boring farm in the middle of the Dust Bowl. God help her. She had a fantasy life. She not only fantasized, but she found herself, she dreamed herself and fantasized herself into a whole nother world, as you can do as well. Don't let other people squash your dreams and your emotions and your ability to fantasize and to grow, because humans are growth machines. We do stop. I mean, Sarah, have you met people who stop?
Yes, I have. It's really sad because they really end up being miserable. They're some of the most miserable people that I've met, truthfully. And it's very sad. It's sad to observe. And when you try to talk to them about trying something new, they're so set in their non-growth or their stagnation, whatever you want to call it, that they can't conceive of anything else. They can't even conceive of a new hobby that they might want to try.
What's the reason? Why is that? Because they got squashed. They believed, that life was supposed to be a certain way, supposed to be, should be, should have, would have, could have. We got to throw that away. We have to break free. There is east, west, south, and north, and we can all go in many, many, many different directions. And the issue is pulling ourselves out of that muck and forgetting and remembering that we were once individuals, that had a dream. Yeah, sure. We decided to settle. We decided to settle into a relationship and gain, why do people settle into relationships? We settle into relationships because they're secure, they're safe. We do it because as humans have done this, since the beginning.
Yes.
Being alone is not, always so wonderful. But we need to learn to be alone sometimes. And the people who understand how to be alone and how to move forward, usually results in their lives getting much better. It even changes the nature of the relationship that they're in, where all of a sudden the other person goes, "What happened to you?" All of a sudden you're here, you're there, you're this, and you look at them and you go, "Yeah, you know what? Because I want a life. I'm tired of being disappointed. I'm tired of thinking like Friday night we're going to do something. I put something on the calendar, but something comes up, disappointment. I
Right.
thought maybe we were going to have some, knockdown, drag out, crazy sex, and like rock the bedroom, and have the big event, like wham bam and all that, and instead it just fell through. It didn't happen.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Somebody
it's a huge disappointment. That's a huge, huge disappointment for something. And you know what? That doesn't get better. The more that happens, the more disappointment you get used to, the more you acclimate yourself to disappointment, which is definitely a form of codependency because you're just dependent upon, the mood and the whatever of somebody else. And your life depends on the mood and the activities and the whatever and the initiative of somebody else.
right.
In some ways, you have part of the blame. There's some culpability there. I'm not trying to tell you that it's your fault. Please don't, misconstrue that. I'm saying you have culpability if you've allowed yourself to settle in some kind of quicksand that keeps on repeating itself week after week after week.
And why do people do that? Why do people hang in there? I think that they believe that it will get better. I think that's part of human conditioning that we have hope. We think that it will get better if we just keep hanging in there. And sometimes that's true, but something has to change in order for it to get better. You have to shake up that status quo.
Yeah, in couples, work, which I've done so much of, and so have you, Sarah. People make promises. There's the issue of the
Yeah.
promise, you know, with a big P. I promise things will get better. I promise that, instead of doing work, we're going to go out next weekend and have a great time. I promise we're going to go on that vacation. I promise that we're going to get back to the sex, that we used to have, or at least some semblance, of something, that might be satisfying.
Exactly.
And because we need to be satisfied
Yeah.
and unsatisfied. I mean, come on, I can't get no, you can't get no, right? That's right. Well, that song, is popular because guess what? A lot of people
Can't
can't get
know
no satisfaction.
that.
That's right.
That's
I
right.
mean, it sure sounds good. It's got a great
Can't
beat. I mean, what
know
song has a better beat than that? But
that.
why was it so popular? It's
Yeah,
popular because it's
that's
such a
right.
human thing.
That's right. That's right. And I try. Sorry, I'm turning into more of a jazz tune, I think.
That look, that it's about promises. So it's not only that it's your fault, we rely on other people's word. Things are going to get better. We have discussions. Sometimes we call meetings. Sometimes we write lists. Sometimes we put it down on paper. Sometimes we write it in lipstick, on the mirror
Sure.
like this, like, hello,
So,
remember that you married somebody, and that what we used to have, and for some people that doesn't even awaken. I mean,
no,
sometimes it feels like you're waking the dead.
I
You know,
have I have a story that I am allowed to tell actually from some clients. Now this is real. We have our intake forms, obviously, and our confidentiality clauses. Now this is a story I'm allowed to tell. This woman was so disappointed with her husband that in addition to the intake form, she wrote a 20-page Word document of her disappointments and we went through it with the husband.
That must have been a nasty list. I wouldn't have want to be a fly on that wall.
Pages.
I might have been crying. God knows, right? A 20-page list. Look, I've had it before too. It's no joke, I've talked about it before, that when people come, and I ask them, what's up? How can I help you? How can we, move your relationship forward? Somebody goes ahead and reaches into,
Right. And you wanted something.
and I look at them and go, how many things you got on that list?
Right.
And they actually start counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 35, 53. 53. What?
And
I
can I
said, forget about solving 53 reasons why you guys are disappointed and not working out and your relationship sucks. I said, try 1, 2, and 3 and stop right there, because we can't deal with more than 1, 2, or 3.
right.
And, we can't expect. But
Right.
the most important thing, about this disappointment thing is you swimming in it, you drowning in it, or you opening up your mouth, and are you raising your hand and saying, hello, I am extremely freaking disappointed with the way this relationship is today, and I need some things to change. Now, what happens after you say something like that? What happens?
Well, here's the thing is that couple that I'm referring to, they're actually together because in the end, the wife said something nearly exactly. She came to that point, exactly what you said. And that couple is together because the husband was open. He did want to make it work. And once she saw that he was working on it, they were able to talk and they were able to get things back right on track.
So basically, you bring hope to the case, Sarah. Things can change.
They're still together.
They can't possibly change until you put it up there, on the table.
Exactly.
You got to put your business up on the table, and you got to say what it is. Like, 50 colors of horny. I'm like, hello. I know that we got married, and I know we had some children if we did. Well, what happened to the rest of it? Where'd it go? I'm reading it in these books. I'm like in these romance novels. People are doing it. People are, what happened? Where'd it go? It doesn't have to be all rocking. It doesn't have to be like it was. It doesn't have to be.
No.
It just has to be, on the table. Put it on the table.
Exactly.
Attention, recognition, validation.
That's it.
I care about you. You can read the love languages. It's in a million different languages. Whatever you're from, everybody has a way of feeling satisfied. Find it. Find it for your partner. Guess what? It's going to make your life a lot easier. If your partner's sad, and if your partner complains all the time about their disappointment, and worse, if they yell, they might yell. And you know what yelling does. Yelling, sends us packing. We don't hear a thing past the third word.
Nope. People withdraw, they stonewall, they get defensive. It shuts down any kind of reasonable communication in our brain, for sure.
But it also speaks to the fact, that relationship disappointment is really a hurtful thing. And it doesn't have to be that way. People, unfortunately, let it go on for way, way too long before they go ahead and raise their hand. Or, the classic thing is, honey, we need to get some counseling. I think we really, oh, no, we don't need somebody to dabble in our lives. We don't need anybody, to look into what we're doing. And then 2 years later, 2 years pass, months and months and months of the same BS, until finally, even 4 years later, they end up in some counseling office where things are so bad and things are so broken, that it literally, the therapist is like thinking, oh my goodness gracious, if only we would have come, for, well, you didn't. and there's been 4 more years of being broken when it doesn't have to be.
If
So
you're disappointed, don't put it off. See
yeah,
somebody.
say something, do something, um,
Anything.
put your foot down. Oh, I would also, when I say that, I always have to do a disclaimer because there are some relationships where there's violence and there's some relationships where there's abuse. And don't expect, number one, if you're in an abusive relationship, and you might be in an abusive relationship because you grew up in an abusive relationship, it repeats itself time and time again, and your children become abusive. It's a horrible, horrible,
Trauma.
kind of cycle. But if I say speak up, but not if there's some danger.
Right.
If you're in danger, I'm not telling you to put your foot down so that you
No.
can get a foot in your face. That's just you don't belong in a relation. Nobody belongs in an abusive relationship. It's hard to extricate yourself from them. We know, but if you're out there and you're listening right now about disappointment and all that,
Yeah.
and you're in even more so that there's a threat and that you're under threat, and you have to find a way. You need to talk to somebody, and you need to find the doorway out to safety, but in a safe way, not in a way. You have to be very careful, and you have to approach it in a way where you, your children, whoever it is, are safe. Because
Yes, there's a caveat here because we know from statistics that if a woman is in a truly abusive relationship, the likelihood of her getting killed when she leaves is very high. We know that.
it's dangerous.
And so,
And we feel for you, but we don't want to give you some kind of ridiculous hope.
no,
We're talking about relationships that are, that don't have abuse to them. We're
exactly.
talking about relationships where people have neglected each other's feelings, and they haven't paid attention to each other, and they haven't lived up to the promises that they made to each other, and they don't hit each other, and they don't throw shit at each other, and they don't do that, kind of stuff, because that has no place or
No,
purpose in any relationship.
never.
And I hope we've made that point of differentiating.
And I've worked with domestic violence cases, and I know Zev has as well. So it's,
Most importantly, there are things you can do.
yes,
And it's important for in a relationship to have a reasonable mutual vision. People change over time. Relationships are developmental. Some people change a lot faster than other people do. We're not the same people we were the day we said I do, and we have to account for that, and we have to kind of make concessions for that and understand where we are today and where we want to be. The way is meet each other's needs by telling each other what those needs are so that your disappointment might have a chance of moving in a different direction. You got to state your needs. We don't read minds. There's no telepathy. We're not mind readers. You got to say it. If nothing changes, then you have to be, seriously emphatic about it, and say, look, I can't do this anymore. I can't live in a relationship that's so, stale and terrible, that it's devoid of feelings, and I'm losing myself. I'm losing myself in this relationship, and nobody should lose themselves.
no,
Nobody. So if you have that kind of feeling, you know, have the discussion. If you can't have the discussion, find a professional to help you move that discussion. Because sometimes it takes a third party to help you guys have the discussion that you need. But that discussion has to happen. And it should result in some kind of mutual vision for the future. Forget, okay, it's been rough roads, you've been in rough waters, things have been crappy. we admit it. What are we looking towards? What can we both contribute to this relationship that will make it a more meaningful, stimulated, happier, satisfied place to be? That you look forward to going to. I mean, the one thing I remember, a story, and I might have said it before, but I was walking my dog and I was going down into this park, and I saw this friend of mine, sitting in her car smoking a cigarette. And, I thought to myself, I don't really want to say anything to her. And, being the therapist that I am, I knew what she was doing. She didn't want to go home. Her relationship ended up being, in a divorce, nasty.
Oh,
But the truth is that she came home, drove home, and drove to this park where she was sitting alone smoking a cigarette. As some people go to bars, in the corner bar. Others, I guess sit in their cars wishing, that they, really feeling like I can't open that door. God, I'm going to open that door and the same old stuff's going to happen. And it's going to be so damn disappointing. And I just don't want to be there.
yeah.
So
Right.
make your relationship a place you look forward to being. Sarah and I do these podcasts because we want you to think. We're thinking people. We've been through it. We're in long-term relationships. We've heard stories, of happiness and horror. You name it. We've heard lots of it. I wouldn't say that I'm never surprised anymore, because nowadays you do hear some things, that are kind of a little different. So I wouldn't say that I don't get surprised, but it's about humans, and this is about humans, and we can change our situation. Everybody in the whole world can change your situation. So anyway, we've talked a lot today. We've presented a lot. I'm sure we've driven the point home.
Yes.
So think about, go into your weekend thinking about, maybe having a conversation, maybe moving it along. And we're coming to the end of this season of our podcast, and we'll be starting up again in the beginning of September. And we have 2 podcasts. Sarah, you want to tell them about it?
Yes, on Tuesdays, we do a personal development podcast, which is based on our book called Discover Your Amazing Edge. You can find it anywhere online, really. It's on all the online outlets as well as in bookstores. Great book. What I love about this book is you can open it to any chapter. It's one of those books that you don't have to read from the beginning to end. You can open to any chapter and get nuggets of gold right there.
And we wrote it like that by design. We wrote it that way by design. And the podcast on Tuesdays is called Mind Shift Happens. And then the next podcast is
Spicy Fridays on Fridays,
where we talk about relationships A to Z.
And how many years have you been doing relationship therapy / counseling?
Oh, I've been doing it 30 years.
Okay. I've been in it for about 13. So I'm the less experienced one here, but
I'd say you're pretty experienced, and you have a great sense, especially when it comes to issues of infidelity. You've heard a lot of those, and you've dealt with a lot of cases, and I'm sure people. But look, reach out to Sarah and I if you are looking for help in either of those areas, because relationships or you're looking for a mind shift. You're looking to change. Personal development. You're looking to grow, and you want to reach the next level of your life. We have a new website that's going to be launched in September, and we're looking forward to it. It's jam-packed with opportunities for you to find you. And we hope you avail yourself of that. And anyway, it's time for the weekend. So I'm wishing you and Sarah have a great weekend. I'm wishing everybody out there
Yep.
have a super weekend and get with each other and
Yes.
move past the disappointment and have a good time until we see you next time.
We'll see you next time. Take care, everybody.
Bye now.
Bye.